Hey everybody, I'm Jody Vance and I'm very excited. We have a very special guest. We're not talking politics, we're talking to Shachi Kurl about her experience moderating the politics as we open up and find out behind the scenes on UnSpun podcast. So, Shachi, thank you so much for doing this with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm happy to be with you, Jody. Thanks for inviting me.
You and I always talk on short notice, over the phone on CKNW. I'm asking you about all of the ins and outs of the questions and answers that you gather by being the president of the Angus Reid Institute. You're an award-winning journalist. You're not used to just sitting and chatting about Shachi as much as you
can you think of something more uncomfortable? I can't.
I'm really looking forward to...
I have a pretty good relationship with my dentist, and I'm more comfortable hanging out with him. Here's a little known fact about me. I've had Invisalign in my teeth. I've had very crooked teeth, so they had to get fixed, and I prefer hanging out with Dr. Ho than I am doing this. So.
Than Journalist Joe or Journalism Joe. Okay, let's introduce people to who the woman behind all that you have achieved in your life is. Like, honestly, like you and I have talked a couple of times. You've definitely found your power in a way that is so important for so many young women, I'm going to say, girls that are tuning into this and maybe thinking like, oh, what's this all about? You are a Jack Webster Award winner. What was the UN that you did? The U.S. State Department's International Visitors Leadership Program. I mean, there's just a million things to sort of unearth in the Shachi Kurl background. So give us a little bit of an idea of your upbringing. Let's start there. Start at the beginning.
Okay. I mean, like, yeah, we can go full on David Copperfield style. We can start with like, I'm born. So, born at St. Paul's in Vancouver when they still had a maternity ward. Maybe they still do. I don't know. Spent the first year and a half of my life in Kits. I have no memory of it, but grew up in East Richmond. So, yeah, I'm an East Richmond girl, went to Mitchell Elementary, went to Cambie Junior Secondary, graduated from Richmond High. I am very local, and you would get this in a way that a lot of folks in Metro Vancouver don't, because there aren't that many of us who are actually born, raised, grew up from kind of the hood, and people have different interpretations from the hood, but my block and where I grew up was pretty unassuming, pretty middle class, not, didn't go to any of the French immersion or the advanced programs or anything like that. Just was a normal kid growing up on the block, riding my bike. I used to deliver the Richmond Review.
Really?
Yeah. That was a job. And then I used to sub in for the neighborhood boy that did the Vancouver Sun delivery, but apparently I was a pretty dreamy kid, and I would like mess up the deliveries and miss houses or deliver to the wrong house, and then I got fired for that. I wasn't asked to do it again.
Oh, hilarious. So,
I was more interested like reading the news than actually delivering it. I was like, oh, this is interesting.
And that's where I was going to go next. Like, when did you know? Because it takes a special kind of person to want to just go in search of the story, to find out more, go an inch wide and a mile deep, or a mile wide and an inch deep, depending on what you're covering. When did you step onto the path to journalism?
I think I was one of these really weird, geeky, nerdy, not a lot of friends kids growing up who was really into watching the news and following current events and what was going on. And it was just something that was of interest to me. I think when I was little, I thought about being an author or a writer because I used to love to read storybooks. And then I think probably in high school, I think for me, what was really interesting was the defining moments around the first Gulf War. So I would come home, and I wasn't even in high school at that time, but I would come home, and you know what it's like. Everyone wants to come home and watch like Days of Our Lives and General Hospital, and they kept cutting in. It was like CNN cut-ins the whole time with the first bombing of Baghdad. And I was like, and Arthur Kent pops up, and he's like waving his helmet around or his gas mask. And I'm like, ooh, that looks interesting.
Maybe. And then on the path you go.
Yes, well, I suppose so. So then gosh, this is like my whole life story.
I love it. Keep going.
So I went to Carleton. I did my journalism degree. I did a degree in journalism and political science from Carleton. And then what was really interesting was I was pretty definite about wanting to come back to the West Coast. So Carleton's in Ottawa, very well-respected journalism school. But interestingly, I get back to Vancouver and the Vancouver market, and I hadn't graduated from BCIT. And I think a lot of news directors and hiring managers were like, oh, you didn't come out of the BCIT system? You didn't come out of the Langara system? And I'm like, dudes, I got a degree. Like, I did the 4 years, not the 2 years. Come on.
Yeah.
And so there was no easy path. And of course, that people talk about how bad things are in journalism and in newsrooms today and how tough it is. I don't remember it being any easier when I started in the business. So it was like super competitive, super hustle. So I worked the overnights at Global. And that was, I think, really like you learn to write and you learn to be fast, and you learn all the basics when you are working a midnight to 8 a.m. shift and prepping a 5-hour show in the course of one shift. And so that was pretty intense. And then I was doing some freelance and gig work at CBC in the newsroom there. I was writing for the Vancouver Sun. So I was just stringing together as much work as I could get, because it's very gig work. It was very precarious. We all know that. And it kind of went from there. And then I give a lot of credit to my former colleague and good friend Hudson Mack, who grabbed me and brought me over to Victoria. And I was there for several years. And that's how I got into covering BC politics.
Which brings us to a very big week for you. And actually, Hudson Mack posted the picture of your Webster Award-winning evening on Tuesday, immediately following the BC Leaders Debate that you moderated. So could you give us the behind the scenes, pull the curtain back if you might, on how you came to be sitting in that moderator's chair?
I got a call from a member of the consortium group, and they asked me if I would do it. And I mean, elections are busy enough times for me in my life, because just to fast forward a little bit, I left the daily newsroom work some years ago. And of course, now I work as a public opinion pollster. So that was a couple of weird bumps along the way, but I love it. And to me, I always say it's the greatest, it's the job closest to journalism outside of a newsroom. So I enjoy it immensely. But, elections are prime time for us, and they're stressful. And by the way, there's 2 of them, right? There's this one, and then there's this other one in Saskatchewan.
That other one.
And then for a while, it looked like there might be a federal one. And at that point, like, my head is going almost Linda Blair style from The Exorcist. Like, I'm just like, no, I can't deal with it.
Give the girl a break.
And in the middle of all of that, I get a call from Les Staff at CTV, who heads up the BC Broadcast Consortium, which is a group of all of the major broadcasters in British Columbia, but Les was sort of heading up part of the hiring aspect of it. And I said, would you like to do this, or would you do this, or would you be interested in doing this? And I was like, yeah, sure, that sounds cool. I think I could do that. And I had done, I had done constituency debates before during election cycles, and I'd done that as a working journalist. I'd done some just as a volunteer on behalf of the BC Muslim Association at the Burnaby Ismaili Khane, and so I'd had a few experiences sort of doing that type of thing, but never a leaders debate. So first you're like, yeah, I'm gonna do that. And then you watch the Trump Biden train wreck.
Oh my gosh, girl.
And I remember watching it on my tablet, on my couch, just going, oh my God, what have I just said yes to? And so, yeah, that was a bit of a gut check moment. And then following up and watching the Pence-Harris debate, it's just going, oh my God.
Well, after watching those two, if I can jump in right there, because after watching those two things, you must have had a moment of, there's no way I can win this. In a, like, the way that the collateral impact of for those moderators in those two, in the presidential and vice presidential debates in the US, that changed, like, the moderators' sort of spotlight got exponentially hotter in 1 week.
That was what I felt. That was really the pressure that I was feeling and the heat that I was feeling, which is, there's going to be so many eyes on this in BC because, you know, people are interested, they're engaged, and they've had two absolute, you know, just disasters play out in front of them. So, and then of course you don't want to talk about it. Like, you don't want to be the story. You don't want, you know, but then if you say, I don't want to be the story, then karma's going to bite you in the butt. And then
you're the story.
So,
you know,
at that point, you just do your homework. And so doing my homework included working with a really fantastic team of senior political journalists and observers in prepping the questions and the themes and having really long conversations, multiple meetings, and sweating every question and every word of every question, and really having to decide, because it's only 90 minutes, what stays in, what gets included, what gets excluded. You know, you have to make tough choices around that. And we had an amazing executive producer in Margot Harper, so she did a fantastic job, very seasoned BC journalist. So there was the content aspect of it, and that felt okay. Like, I've been watching BC politics, like, now my remit is frankly more federal politics, but I've been watching BC politics for a long, long time. I had the benefit of, you know, watching John Horgan's career go from backbench MLA on the island to premier, knew who Andrew Wilkinson was before he was the leader, got to know Sonia Furstenau a little bit before she was leader. So not that I know any of them personally or am buddies, but, you know, you have a sense of who these folks are. So you feel like there's a bit of home court advantage there. And then the content piece of it felt pretty comfortable, but then it was the whole, like, traffic cop piece of it. And it was the moderating aspect of it. So you're reaching out to really seasoned journalists who've done this before you and saying, okay, give me all your advice. But then but then you have to be really conscious of, take all of that advice and then curate it or filter it, because otherwise everyone's just, you know, you've got all kinds of people telling you all kinds of things and you can't get overwhelmed by that. You have to sort of have a game plan in your own head. And then, you know, it's like hockey or sports. I watched tape. I looked at the proportional representation debate between Mr. Horgan and Mr. Wilkinson, and really was trying to figure out, okay, how do they interact with each other, and when do you get that sense when they're really going to start going at each other, and what can I do to dial that back? And really, you know, who did I want to try to be going into this? And I think some of the best advice I got was from folks who have done this before me, who said, it's not about how you're interacting with the leaders on the stage. It's really about who you're remembering you're doing. We're all doing this for, and that's the audience, and that's BC voters. And I think particularly in this pandemic, and this is just such a bonkers year, but because of it, it's a bonkers campaign. So you don't have candidates on the doorstep. No. And you don't have big rallies, and you don't have meet and greets in the same way. So this really was, I think, a more rare opportunity for BC voters in this election cycle to try to get to know the leaders and the voters a little, or the parties and their platforms a little bit. And so there was a public service aspect of it. Like, I know that politicos always watch these things, and journalists, and, oh, what was the knockout punch, or where were the fireworks? And I was like, I want this to be really boring, right? Like I just want this to be informative.
It was. You nailed that. I've got to say, you totally nailed that. And the times where I was like, here he goes, or here she goes, pick your person. And you were like, excuse me. The question was like for many of us, the voter, the viewer, we felt like, thank you, Shachi. Thank you for pulling that back and being so Canadian about it. Firm, fair, polite, but certainly unwavering. Like you had this spine to you. It was almost as though they all knew when you went, I'm sorry, or you just say, Mr. Wilkinson, Mr. Horgan, like your tone of voice, it was very like, and they went, couple of runovers, but that was, I mean, it was so refreshing and epic to watch. I congratulate you.
Thank you. I didn't want to stifle exchanges.
Right, you didn't.
I felt very strongly, having watched a lot of these debates, that when they're both doing this, actually you have nobody's benefiting from that.
Correct.
And so there was that. And then there was, just really wanting to get the best out of these folks. Yeah. And I also want to say, like, I give them, like, BC politics is not US politics.
No.
So these folks I know have the capacity to really go after each other and talk over each other and be those people. But I have no doubt that their strategists and advisors, when they did their debate prep on the Sunday and the Monday, were also like, don't do that.
Yeah.
Do that. You're not.
Can we talk about the prep though a little bit? Because I heard, and I'm not 100% on this, so you could tell me, or tell me that you can't tell me. Was there a problem with the teleprompter with the BC Green Party leader, Sonia Furstenau's notes or something? Somebody had said that she'd looked up and it wasn't there at one point.
I don't think they were on prompters. They weren't on prompters. They had binders, like they had notes.
Maybe that was it.
Binders, like they had notes.
Right.
They had like a scribble sheet to write stuff down and make little notes to themselves.
Right.
The only person that was on a prompter, and that was because I had to like say a whole bunch of stuff right off the top, like talk about the rules and talk about the themes and talk about how we came about doing this. You really cannot memorize all of that unless you're an actress or an actor. I guess I shouldn't genderize it. So unless you're an actor,
yes.
And that's not my biz. So I had a teleprompter, but they did not. So
okay, good to know. See,
if she looked up and had a moment where there was a pause, I think she was just thinking.
I love that pause.
Where do I want to go?
It made everybody stop what they were doing and look at the pregnant pause is a very good tool that some of these don't quite get. And I thought that your cadence, their cadence, you did nail it pretty much in saying that we are not American politics. And the civility, there can definitely be fire and there can definitely be knockout moments in some debates that happen here, but more often than not, it is about the platform and getting the messaging across. But every now and then a question that is asked that has been, as you said, sweated to the minutia, the question gets asked and then the spin comes and it goes, and you kept going, back here.
You try to do that. You don't want to do it so much that it then becomes like this ongoing exchange between you and the candidates. So were there times where it was like, yeah, you didn't totally answer that either, but
moving on.
We gotta keep moving.
Yeah.
But where I felt it was important to interject, I did. And that, by the way, was like, when you talk about the things that I might've been sweating, like I was sweating that. It was like, how am I going to do this? It's not a Canadian thing, or it's not a woman. It doesn't feel comfortable. It doesn't feel comfortable to, like, I don't mind talking a little bit or interrupting someone when I'm having a conversation with them over dinner. I get told by my family, I dominate conversations over dinner, but I
see you there.
Yeah. So I have to work on this, but again, it goes down to not wanting to make it about you, not wanting to, like these people are nervous too, right?
Yeah.
They have a lot to lose. They're just as nervous as you are, if not more so. I definitely, like, everyone was kind of, hence when we all, like, they all came in with their masks on, they all took their mask off, took their position at the podium. I was already there, and there was, you know, like about a minute of hang time, and it's kind of everyone sort of awkwardly like, hi, oh, hi, oh, hi, Shachi. It was a less Shachi, and it's like, I know. Hey, if I'd had a flask at my desk, I might have turned it into a drinking. But I said to them, I looked at them all and I was like, hey, good energy, like, smile, let's have a good show, let's have some fun, because
let's do this.
You could pick up the nervous energy. And so what am I saying? I'm being very long-winded, but
no, I love everything you're telling me. Keep going.
I didn't want to be the responsible for knocking someone so profoundly off because you're interjecting or because you're interrupting. And they probably rehearsed for that too, but you know, you don't want to be the ref that is ultimately responsible for the way a game gets called because of, you know, you're blowing the whistle too much or not enough.
That's such a great sports analogy that, you know, I can wrap my head around. I've been my years covering sports, because that really is key to it. And as you were bringing us to that moment in the debate, or to those moments in the debate, it's interesting because, as you say, they're nervous too. This is probably one of the biggest challenges in this election cycle, is to have these debate moments. And if you interject at just the wrong moment for their thought process, they might lose that one point that was the vital point for the platform that's there for the people. Like, that doesn't serve the end product.
You feel that. I felt the pressure. I felt the pressure for sure.
Did you bake cookies? You were like, everybody gets a cookie. That was my favorite thing.
And then some people took that literally.
Oh yeah.
So we can debunk that myth right here on UnSpun. I did not actually bring but then everybody thought I did, and then I kind of wished I had, and then I felt bad for not having thought of that. And it just came to my head. I just wanted to say something just to end the note on a moment of acknowledgement, and the night on a moment of acknowledgement and levity and just gratitude. Like, hey, you guys were part of making this successful, and thank you for that. And y'all get a cookie.
It was perfect. It was the perfect thing to say. And then I watched on Twitter all of our colleagues, our journalistic and media broadcast, all, like, the echo effect was really unbelievable. The cookies, people were posting cookies, and people that didn't have cookies were posted other things. McLean Kay, our editor-in-chief at the Orca, he posted, I believe it was a bourbon, because he's like, no cookies, so I'll post this. But everybody was toasting you.
Oh, that's so sweet.
That must have been something else when you open up that or listen to your voicemail, or, you know.
It was beautifully overwhelming. It really was. And as, like, the kid that got bullied all the way through school, it was strangely validating.
I love that.
But
I love that it was validating, not that you were bullied in school.
Long time ago, but you know, the little Shachi inside never totally goes away, right? So no, but it was they made me give up my phone. So I had my phone on the desk, like, as we were doing just some camera tests and stuff. And Mike Henniger at Global, who's another senior producer, instrumental in putting this debate together, was like, yeah, you can't have your phone. And I'm like, what? And they're like, I think the fear was I would be on Twitter during the debate if I was on my phone. Which, trust me, there was so much going on. But I know me, I would have been like, I'm just
eyeballing it. Another blink, blink.
I'm
Mike's like that, though. I worked with Mike Henniger at CBC doing the Seeking Stanley show, and he would take your phone.
So yeah,
he's a phone taker.
I was allowed to go back at the end to my little cubby and get my phone, and then of course the phone had blown up, and so yeah, there was a lot of notes to respond to, and probably some that I still haven't, just because they've been missed, and but it's been very, very nice, and very, Yeah, very, very affirming, I guess. But also, it's a serious business, and it's not like, oh, golly gosh, gee whiz, this, I know you want me to talk about me. I just like, I want to bring it back to, this was a team effort. There was a lot of prep involved. I was the face of it. And I didn't profoundly screw that part of it up, but that's because I had a ton of support, including from the leaders.
But isn't that the case really in all of our broadcast and even print lives? Whether you're a journalist or a talk show host or a broadcaster of any walk, there's always a team behind the scenes that gives the forward facing or the front of camera or the one in the byline that. And to that end, because we only got a couple minutes here, to be honest with you, it's just flying by for me. I could talk to you for an hour. We last had a conversation about forward-facing, front-facing, powerful women, women who have found that, you know, that voice and are fearless in using it. And our conversation was about when Dr. Bonnie Henry mentioned at the UBCM that she was receiving some incredibly troll-like negative and even death threats and needed to have private security put into her home. And you and I were able to have that conversation on radio when that was a breaking story. And I think it's important that we just kind of cap off our conversation here with, perhaps maybe, did you get any negative feedback from being that powerful front-facing woman in the debate, or how do you tell the young person, woman, they, he, whomever who's watching that might feel that they get that bully piece, how they deal with it moving forward?
I mean, I will say that I was very, I don't know what the word is, lucky or whatever. Of course, people are going to be unhappy. There was a lot of, why did you focus on this? And that was the wrong question to ask, or who put you up to that? Or why didn't you focus more on this? So, but that was all editorial. It was all about the issues and substantive and about content. And that was, hey, I can take that. You know, I'm a big girl, I can take that. But I would just say, and I wrote a piece about this, gosh, like ages ago, 15 plus years ago, about the experiences of cruelty and bullying. And, you know, my message to young people has always been, or really even anybody out there, is it gets better. There really are people who care for you. And nothing lasts forever. Frankly, nothing good lasts forever. Nothing bad lasts forever. So this has been a week where people are very kindly and very overwhelmingly and heartfeltly taking time to say nice things. But guess what? Next morning, 6 a.m., I had a deadline. I had someone on my phone from Saskatchewan going, where is this information? It was supposed to be, and it's like, boom, right down to earth. And that's good. It's good because it keeps you grounded.
And before I let you go, I want to shine a little light on your position that you hold as vice chair of the Cancer Society. Why?
Canadian Cancer Society, amazing organization, not wearing yellow on purpose, but yes, yellow for CCS. We are the only pan-Canadian cancer organization that funds research for all cancers in all parts of the country, really best-in-class stuff, and it's both a matter of mission and research. So not only are the best scientists through the work that we fund trying to increase survivorship and really increase quality of life and help beat back these cancers, but also it's about, COVID's been a tough year for all charitable organizations, but it's also about driving people, you know, volunteers that run the programs that drive people to chemo. It's about the WIG libraries. It's about support. So if you are someone who is dealing with a diagnosis, or if you are a friend or family member, or if you're someone who wants to know more about prevention, please go to cancer.ca, and lots of information there on the website. I used to do the daffodil campaigns with my mom, like when I was 6 and 7, we used to go knock on the doors and she would never let me hold the money envelope, but I got to hold like the clipboard. And that's why I do it.
I'm so glad you do. Thank you for doing that. And thank you for doing this. People can follow you on Twitter. What's your Twitter handle?
It's at first name dot last name, so it's really easy. At Shachi Kurl, ShachiKurl.
Great follow on Twitter for all sorts of information and some really great opinions as well, because they are certainly your own. Thank you for doing this.
Unless they're yours, unless they're those of Canadians that I'm.
I love that. I love that. Unless they're yours. That is exactly what's on your Twitter bio, and it is important. So Angus Reid, of course, you get your polling numbers, your information, your data, and you can trust this nonpartisan institute to bring what Canadians are feeling, what Canadians are saying, and what Canadians are being asked and how they answer. That is where you find out what we are doing here in our country, and it's very important that that be the message here at the Orca. So I thank you for your time. Our time is up. Thank you. Please come back again.
All right, anytime.